Good afternoon, everyone. We are family. 18 here today have come from near and far to share this special day together. From nearby Kiowa, Bill in Maryland. All the way from San Francisco, Dave, Jen, and little Jackson. From Boston, Michelle and MJ. From Baltimore, Chris. From Washington, D.C., Karen. And earlier today, from Weston, Florida, my brother Paul was here and was able to greet Graham. From Buffalo, we have Debbie.
Well, I moved, sorry. I keep moving.
Jim and Nancy. Kathy and Jerry. Myself, Douglas, and Dave and Paul. And we are mindful of the other 91 living descendants of John Wisniewski and 38 spouses spread all across this great nation today. Today we honor a hero. Someone who, despite difficulties all around her, was courageous in battling through life. Determined to see her family not only survive, but succeed. A hard-working woman. A woman of principles. Disciplined. Frugal. Wise. Oh, so wise.
Thank you.
What an honor to celebrate her life, not in memoriam, but right here now with her in person. Pauline Wisniewski Ryba, born 100 years ago today, on February 27th, 1913.
What an honor it is to have your family here with you on such a special occasion. I'm happy you all came. I'm very pleased with your efforts in your schoolwork and your employment. And you're all doing so well. I'm very proud of my family. Very proud, especially of my daughters. I love my daughters very much.
Page 2.
A little bit of history. Born of Polish immigrants who came to America around 1905. They were not even 20 years old. John Wisniewski and Mary Benecki met and married in New York City. A few years later, they moved to Buffalo, New York, where they raised their family. Pauline, my grandmother, who we affectionately called Graham, was the fourth of Mary's 6 children. Mamie, born 2.5 years after Graham, was Graham's little sister and playmate. And as she just shared with me earlier tonight, when Graham was 4 years old, she and Mamie came down with pneumonia. And they both went into the hospital, and only Pauline came out. Incidentally, her sister Helen lived 61 years. Her sister Louise lived 89 years. And her sister Violet lived 80 years. In 1920, 7 days shy of Graham's 7th birthday, her mother died in a flu epidemic. Her mom was just 33 years old. Later that same year, John Wisniewski remarried to a woman from Kiev, Poland. John and Anna then had 3 children, Henrietta, Bernice, and Leonard. So from oldest to youngest, the children spanned 19 years. At age 21, Graham married Julian Ryba on June 12, 1934. 9 months later,
Yeah. No time.
What did you say?
Wonderful daughter she was. She was the top of my list, and both my daughters were excellent. They were super children for a mother that had to work, and I worked double shift. They not only took care of all of us, took care of the house, took care of the cooking. I don't know how they did it, but they did. They took. I'm mixed up,
It's okay.
You did fine.
but I'll make it. I'll make it. I'll make it.
Well, she doesn't quit.
Yeah.
I'll keep going then.
Doug has a little.
Okay.
9 months after you got married, Nancy was born. Your first.
Yes.
3 years later, came Marilyn.
12 years later, we had Gary.
Gary was born on Valentine's Day. When our nation was fully engaged in World War II, Graham was a real-life Rosie the Riveter, working tirelessly assembling wings for our military's airplanes. And she just said working double shifts.
To put the kids through college.
In December 1949, how many years ago is that? 63 years. Came the untimely death of Julian, that's Graham's husband. Graham was 36 years old, and her children were 14, 11, and Gary was 3. She was a widow.
He was a very good husband and a very good father. Very good, unusually good. My father was just the opposite. I hated him. He loved to strap us on a very slight occasion. He thought that was part of his job, to discipline us, but back then they strapped their kids more than they do today. Today the kids run the household, not the parents.
It's true.
Hear that, Jackson?
The chuckling is because they know you're right.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
And so Julian was a wonderful husband and father?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
That's beautiful.
Handsome. Oh,
Curly
Yes, he
hair.
Very good.
if he wasn't so dedicated to my mother, he could have had many another admirer paying attention to him.
He saw me sewing by hand the girls' dresses when they were little. I sewed all their clothes because it was less expensive. And I loved to sew. My mother did too. And what?
That's
And
okay.
Doug can finish. Want Doug to finish?
Okay.
Graham was widowed in 1949. Graham persevered. She did not quit. She owned and operated a delicatessen on Bailey Avenue near Kensington Avenue. The storefront was attached right to her house. She worked 7 days a week,
Double shift.
double shift.
Took a break only to have Nancy's wedding and my wedding days. Other than that, 365 days a year. Morning till night.
Back then, men would buy cases of beer that were comprised of 24 glass bottles in a heavy cardboard case. The cases had to be stored in the basement. And then they had to be carried up the stairs as they were needed. And I know who did the carrying. My Graham, needless to say, developed strong arms. Nancy, Marilyn, and Gary each earned college degrees. Each of the three would find the love of their life and become happily married. That's a happy story there. Nancy's been married to Jim for 56 and a half years and counting. Bill and Marilyn have been married for 53 and a half years and counting. And Gary was happily married to Marcia for 4 years. Graham had sold the delicatessen and house and purchased and operated a Dairy Queen on South Park Avenue in Lackawanna. She rented a modest apartment around the corner on Knowlton Avenue. Despite its size, Graham would cook delicious dinners at the holiday time in her apartment and invite family over to enjoy. And I remember her baked apples with cinnamon. They were mouth-watering. One year, the Dairy Queen Corporation held a national convention in Florida. Was it Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Yep.
Fort Lauderdale. Graham decided to treat the entire family, there were 14 of us, to a week's vacation in Florida. That was incredible. Gary and Marcia were there with us that week. We stayed at the Diplomat Hotel. And at the vendor show, we were allowed to sample as much soft serve ice cream as we cared to.
That was a blast.
I love those Buster bars. Buster bars with fudge and peanuts and ice cream. Oh boy. Those are delicious.
My favorite too.
Are you done?
One more page. One more page. Gary had been diabetic since a boy. In his late 20s, the disease was taking its toll, and Gary went on dialysis. When the threat of kidney failure loomed, Graham selflessly offered to have one of her healthy kidneys harvested, and that was done and transplanted into her son. Despite all these efforts, Gary lived to be 30. Yet I want to say this about Gary Ryba. He remains one of my most favorite people in all the world, even to this day. He was a gentle guy, insightful. I thought he was cool, never cross. Oh, to be like him.
The nicest thing about being married and having children was we never had to whip our children. We never laid a hand on them, my husband or I. We never had to. They were such good kids.
In the winter months, when the DQ was closed, Graham had opportunities to travel. She went to Italy, she went to Mexico,
Hawaii. Crossed America twice.
Walked on a glacier. You walked on a glacier up north, and you.
Yeah, I walked on the glacier. It was a mile deep, mile thick.
And then you went down to South America and
Brazil.
watched the people on the beach.
Yes.
Greeting the sun.
It was really something. Watching the people dance on the beach to welcome the boats back that went out fishing. Yeah, that was wonderful. That trip. I had been to Mexico and Portugal, and then South America, and 2 weeks in each place.
wow.
Nice. But the best part of going to Hawaii was visiting my grandchildren that were living there at the base.
Karen and her husband.
There she is. And now she's in Washington, D.C. Tell us about it.
Was it a pleasure?
Oh, great. Hawaii was very nice. And I love the cities as well.
Okay, we're almost done.
Almost done.
After selling the Dairy Queen store, Graham became a foster grandparent. Even when she moved south to DeLand, Florida, and when she was more than 70 years old, She devoted her weekday mornings and then her afternoons to befriending, nurturing, and loving disadvantaged children, many of whom could only get around by wheelchair. Finally, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Finally, Graham retired and moved close to Marylandville here in Charleston.
She came down to Florida to get me.
And I think you enjoyed Charleston.
Yes, I did.
Yep. Hard to leave Florida, but a pleasure. We got you to come this way.
Yeah.
Graham's legacy continues through her 7 grandchildren, 18 great-grandchildren, and now 2 recently born great-great-grandsons. Graham, you are amazing, and we love you dearly.
Thanks, Doug.
Oh my, thank you, Doug. Let's give a hand to Doug Rickle, our historian